A guy with black hair and blue eyes is standing in a field with his head bowed. A trickle of scarlet liquid stretches from his lips. There are a lot of abrasions and bruises on his face, and his clothes are shabby. He wears a hoodie with jeans. Drops of sweat are dripping from him, and there is a trace of blood over his left eye, stretching from under his bangs. The guy's name is Lee Yaoin. He remembers a girl he knew. Memories pop up in his head that she asked him not to stare into the void when there are people around. Here the hero comes to himself, looking up in front. Several tanks are coming at him with clearly not friendly intent. They are followed by dozens of soldiers in helmets and military uniforms with machine guns. All people are tense, because on the ground behind the guy are the corpses of their comrades who were brutally murdered. Military fighters are flying over Li Yaying, and at this time he is asking for forgiveness. The chief among the soldiers allows you to open fire on the radio. Tanks, aiming the barrels of weapons at him, fire a volley at him. At this moment, lightning flashes begin to flash in the hero's eyes. She bends her leg at the knees, raising it to chest level, after which she strikes the ground. Several cracks radiate from his impact on the ground. A huge piece of land falls several meters below the terrain. The soldiers fall on him, unable to resist gravity. Tanks explode from this. The hero tries to describe himself in the best possible way. According to him, one day he is a fish swimming in a lake, and the next day he is a bird soaring in the sky. On the third day he is a small ant running among ants like him. And sometimes he becomes a bigger dinosaur. It turns out that the hero lived and died hundreds of times, from the eruption of volcanoes to the flowering of buds. He lived in the body of a variety of creatures. At the same time, he remembers all his past lives. In all his reincarnations, he had never suffered until he met a human. People are ruthless and bloodthirsty. Millions of years of life were imprinted in his memory, and the only beings to whom he felt enmity were people. The hero perfectly understands the usual cycle of things. The strong kill the weak, and the weak have to put up with it. He was used to the fact that every time he died, he realized that he was killed by a stronger being. He was used to these being the laws of the world, and that suited him. However, everything changed with the advent of man. These creatures take lives for fun. He admits that people use a variety of methods and get stronger every time. For several centuries, people have been killing him. Yes, death is quite a natural course of things. Moreover, for the hero, she meant nothing at all. But every time he died at the hands of a man, he was filled with hatred. For millions of years of his life, he was visited by the same thought when he was preparing for death. He was wondering who he would be born this time, but there was one question that haunted him. It consisted in the fact that the hero was trying to understand a simple thing: why he was given such a unique opportunity to be reborn again and again. He was also curious when the end of his eternal rebirth would come. In one of his lives, the hero was an elephant. Death overtook him suddenly. He came across poachers who were hunting for valuable animals. They caught an elephant, cut off its tusks, and then left it to die. The hero is tired of this eternal rebirth. He doesn't want to live anymore. During the birth process, he experienced unbearable pain, as if all the bones were breaking. This time, he felt that the pain was more expressive. He was sure that he would be born a mammal. The hero admits that he has never experienced such pain before. This pain inspires him with a sense of anticipation for a new life. From his rich experience, he knows that the greater the pain, the higher his being will be in the food chain. It is unknown how long he stayed in this unique state. After leaving the enveloping shell, he felt a cold breeze and a warm touch in this frosty environment. Even though his vision was blurred, he immediately realized that he was born a creature that caused him hatred. He was reborn as a man. The main character was named Li Yaying. That's what people called him. It was the first time in all his rebirths that he received a name. The hero admits that human life has turned out to be very difficult. Everyone is alive, but ethnic and racial conflicts continue to arise around. The hero begins to understand human nature a little. He sees that people give everything a name and try to find meaning. The hero's mother takes him to the doctor. The man studies the certificate from the analysis, after which he declares that Jiaying has no problems. The girl is dissatisfied with this arrangement of affairs. She is trying to understand why her son is not talking, since he is completely healthy. The doctor remembers that the child is only 6 years old. He makes the assumption that he is still too young for this. The girl claims that this is not the problem at all. The hero's mother admits that the child almost does not react when she tries to talk to him. The girl recalls that Jiaying did not even cry at birth. The doctor shrugs his shoulders. He doesn't know what the child's problem is. He once again emphasizes that he has no problems with development. He makes a bold assumption that it could be something psychological. The mother does not immediately understand the meaning of the interlocutor's words, so she asks him to repeat. The man also offers the mother to take her child to a psychotherapist. The girl is blown up from the spot. For her, the words psychotherapist and mental hospital are very close words. She zealously defends her child because she believes that the doctor made a subtle hint that her child has gone mad. The doctor is trying to get out of an awkward situation caused by a misunderstanding. He tries to calm the visitor. The hero calmly observes everything that is happening from the side. His mother's name is Yun Shil. He thinks she's a stupid woman. First she lost her family in the war, and soon her husband was also killed. The hero is fully aware that the world has treated her very cruelly, but she did not give up because she had a ray of hope. Yun Shil did not live for herself, but for her child. The girl was selling vegetables at the market to earn a living. One day, Yun Shil heard that children grow up listening to what people around them say. Without receiving any response, the girl continued to talk to Jia Ying. The hero admits that he did not understand what she was saying, but he felt warm. For the first time in his life, he did not feel hatred. Li Ying realizes that there was a big difference in this life. Night has fallen, mother and son have gone to bed, and on the street several men are driving one tramp to the cliff. The poor guy stumbles over a stone, falling to the ground. They're catching up with him. One of the persecuted people decides to find out why the persecuted forced them to run in the middle of the night. The guy, in fear, asks him to spare him. The man is surprised by such words because he cannot spare a communist. The poor guy tries to justify himself by saying that he is not a communist. Then the man pretends to believe him. He holds out his hand to help him up from the ground. Here a voice from the side threatens to kick a man's ass if he doesn't stop. Everyone looks back at the voice. A child of about 6 years old is standing on a high pole. His body is illuminated by the light of the moon, and his face shows absolute calm and confidence. He's wearing red pants and a red long-sleeve t-shirt. The trio of persecutors is amazed at such a statement. There is an awkward silence. The leader of the gang looks at the child, then invites him to go down, noting that it is dangerous there. To himself, he thinks about how the child got there at all. Mentally, Li Yan decides that he was given a great opportunity to demonstrate to people what it was like for him all this time. The hero makes a jump under the light of the moon, after which he calmly lands on the ground, using the frog's capabilities. Adults are under the impression, not understanding how the child managed to pull this off. The hero's legs diverge energy, and he begins to move as fast as a cheetah. Taking off from his place, he moves towards the trio of pursuers. Such speed and skills amaze men. The hero clenches his fingers into a fist, intending to teach the impudents a lesson. One of the bandits pulls out a gun, but he does not even have time to point it in the direction of the boy. Li Ying uses the power of the Argentinosaurus. A boy stabs a man in the face with a gun. The criminal falls to the ground 2 meters away from his comrades, who begin to get very nervous. The gun falls next to the guy who was being chased. The hero now realizes the main difference between this life and others. It turns out that he has an exceptional ability. This time, he was born with the skills of all the creatures he once was. While the adults are trying to cope with the shock, Li Yan finally comes to the conclusion that this life will be the last. After this life, the end of the road awaits him. The bandit leader shouts at the hero out of desperation, trying to find out who he is. Li Ying slowly turns around at the voice of his interlocutor, realizing that he is very close to fulfilling his cherished desire. He is very close to finally dying. Criminals sweat. They are afraid to be with such a monster nearby. The person they were chasing is trembling with fear, watching everything happening from the side. The hero looks at the defeated man. It is difficult to talk about his condition. The whole face is smeared with blood, and a puddle of scarlet liquid has appeared on the ground. Half of the teeth are missing, and the eyeballs have rolled up. Most likely, this person has already died. The hero pays attention to his finger, which may have been damaged during the impact. Tears of despair appear in the eyes of the guy who was being chased. A small child scares him. The leader of the bandits is not going to just stand by. He takes off from the spot, after which he strikes the child. Li Yan gets hit on the cheek, after which he goes to the ground. The man's blow left a distinct bruise on the child's face. This is noticed by the criminal. There is confusion in his eyes from what is happening. The hero realizes that he feels pain very well. He begins to realize that without his abilities, he is an ordinary person. Li Yan rises to his knees, rubbing the bruised place. This puts the attacker into a stupor. Obviously, an ordinary child would not be able to get up after being hit by an adult, but the leader of the gang quickly throws pity aside. He raises his fist, intending to repeat his successful blow. Li Yan doesn't even turn around at the man's exclamations. The blow falls on the back of his head, but this time things are completely different. After the blow, the adult's hand hangs limply. The boy turns in his direction, watching his enemy writhe in pain. He used the turtle's ability to protect himself. The child decides to finish this man off, so he uses the power of a chimpanzee to grab a man's throat with a death grip. The leader of the bandits grabs the boy's hand, trying to stop it, but it's useless. He is being mercilessly strangled, without giving any indulgences. Li Yan realizes that as long as he uses his skills, he can be anyone. The hero raises his fist, intending to finish off the man who attacked him. At this moment, the sound of a gunshot is heard around the neighborhood. The guy, who had been chased by criminals before, found a gun next to him, after which he shot a child with it. The bullet from the weapon went out, passing through the right side. Surprise appears in Li Yan's eyes. He looks at the shooter, not understanding why he did it. In the eyes of a person, he sees fear and horror. Moisture flows from his eyes, and snot flows out of his nose. It is clear that he himself does not understand why he did this. Vision begins to blur, and the strength quickly leaves the boy's body. The child falls to the ground next to two defeated adults. Li Yan admits that he made a mistake. The guy's hands are shaking. He looks at the gun, the muzzle of which is steaming. Only after a few moments does the realization of what he has done come to him. The gun itself falls out of the adult's hands, and he begins to crawl back, not believing in what is happening. Seeing a pool of blood forming under the child's body, it finally dawns on him that he killed him. From such thoughts, the whole nature of a man begins to tremble with horror. The body itself begins to run in the opposite direction, so as not to see this picture before your eyes. The third culprit is confused. He doesn't know what to do. He looks from the shooter to his comrades lying on the ground, hesitating in his decision. Morning comes. The hero comes to his senses. He gathers his strength, then raises his head. There's a pool of blood nearby. He doesn't own it. The criminals have disappeared somewhere. The boy focuses on his right hand, after which he turns over on his back with one jerk. There is a dried up maroon stain under his body. The hero gets to his feet, noting that he was hit again by this strange object. He uses the abilities of the sea cucumber to heal his wound. Li Ying realizes that he survived only because of his instinct for self-preservation. He admits that he thought that nothing could surprise him anymore, but it was interesting. The hero turns towards the road. It amazes him that there can be so much power in so small a body. He understands that this fact can only be taken for granted. Then the boy's hearing begins to catch something. The hero's mother walks around the village. She has panic and horror on her face. Tears are streaming down my cheeks. She walks the streets shouting her son's name in the hope of finding him. She raises all the inhabitants of the settlement. The old man assumes that the child has escaped. Two young girls call the hero's mother a slob. Li Yan realizes that he doesn't have much choice. He starts moving down the road, back towards the house. The hero notices that a small bird has landed on a straw scarecrow. The winged creature notices the boy, but the next moment the hero swallows her. He used one of his abilities to quickly get close to the bird. Li Ying understands that by human standards he cannot yet be called fully grown, but he can hunt on his own. He chews the captured bird right with the feathers and bones, noticing that he sees no reason to stay with his mother. He turns around, starting to walk in the opposite direction from the settlement. A woman can't find a place for herself. She falls to her knees in despair. Tearing off his vocal cords, he calls Li Yan to him, holding his heart at the same time. 4 days pass. The hero walks along the paved path. He's shaking all over. Sweat is running down his face, and his body is seriously emaciated. He plummets in the middle of the road, unable to keep going any further. The boy finds the strength to roll over from his side to his back. His lips are dry and his face is crippled. Bruises from lack of sleep are visible under the eyes. It turns out that he was struck by fever and hunger. He makes the assumption that something is wrong with his diet. Li Ying believed that he was an omnivore. All this time he has been feeding on birds, snakes, and rabbits, so he does not understand what is the matter. The hero admits that in all his millions of lives he has never been visited by this feeling. The feeling of death. He feels that he is sinking to the bottom of the ocean. Li Yan calms himself down by saying that everything is fine and he has no regrets. The boy does not believe that this is really his end. Sounds from the forest attract the attention of the hero. He looks towards the noise and sees his mother. The woman's hands are shaking. All the clothes and skin are scuffed. There are bruises under her eyes, and her lips are chapped. She stares at the child for a few seconds in disbelief. A representative of the fair sex tears off her son, shouting his name. Tears come to her eyes. A woman hugs her child to her, not believing her happiness. Lee Yawen admits that he thought he was dying, but suddenly came to himself because of hunger. It turns out he wants to eat food cooked by his mom. The hero does not like that the girl is crying. He considers it a useless occupation, thinking that it would be better if she fed him. At that moment, everything changed. Li Yaying thought it would be better to comfort the woman, so he began to speak in a human language incomprehensible to him. This brought the mother to her senses, because her child did not just speak for the first time. He said the words that Yun Shil always uttered with a smile. The hero said that he loved his mother, but contrary to his expectations, this stupid woman Yun Shil began to cry even louder. She hugged him to her, ceasing to restrain herself. The boy also noted that the sunset that evening was especially beautiful. It's hard for the hero, but he still accepts the fact that Yun Shil will take care of him until he becomes an adult. He decides for himself that he will try to be human. In one of the rooms, a policeman listens to the report of his detainee. He clarifies whether he correctly understood what they were trying to convey to him. It's hard for him to believe that they, adult men, could be beaten by a small child. Although who would believe in such a thing in his place? The detainee assures that everything was exactly like that. The suspect also claims that he killed this child. Then the policeman asks the key question. He is interested in where the body of a small child is then. It turns out that only Detective On was found at the scene. The detainee mumbles, not knowing exactly what to answer. This goes on for several seconds, during which 3 streams of sweat descend from him. After that, the man declares that he is sure that he was shot. Then the policeman asks a leading question, literally grabbing the words of the interlocutor. He asks if he shot the detective. The suspect zealously declares that he did not do this. He asks a friend standing next to him to stand up for him, because he was there too and saw everything. A man in handcuffs reminds a friend with a broken arm that he shot a child to save him. His comrade is silent and does not say anything. There is an awkward silence for a few seconds. The policeman and the detainee look at the witness, waiting for the answer, which did not take long to wait. The comrade asks the policeman if he really believes the prisoner. In his opinion, to believe the words of a communist is such a thing. He does not understand why he takes this person's words seriously, after which he offers to finish the interrogation and prescribe the appropriate punishment, because he is tired. Tears appear in the prisoner's eyes. He asks the detective to let him go. He does not understand why his friend took and betrayed him. Another policeman approaches from behind, who is trying to calm the raging suspect. While the detective brings a lighter to a cigarette at the mouth of a friend with a broken arm, the guy continues to scream, claiming that he did not shoot the detective, but only killed a child. After a moment, the prisoner corrects himself, saying that he killed a real monster. While the witness takes a puff of cigar smoke, the detective does not understand what came over the guy who shouted. In the afternoon, Li Yawen and his mother walk down the street. A woman leads her child by the hand, afraid of losing it again. It turns out that after that day, Yun Shil began to lead the hero everywhere by the hand. Li Yawen notes that the woman showed him warmth and love, while smiling very often. Her actions did not cause him hatred. It was because of this that he felt danger all the time. Winter is coming. The hero goes to school. Yun Shil swears at the children. Next to her is her son, and a little to the right is the teacher. She is very angry because Li Yawen got into a fight. The woman looms menacingly over the children, literally arranging an interrogation, with which even the teacher can do nothing. First she asks if the teacher taught them this. A teacher comes in for the students, who claims that children's fights are a normal phenomenon. This only makes Yun Shil more furious. Now the woman switches to the teacher. In her opinion, this should not be said to the mother of a child. She declares that it is not worth teaching her proper upbringing, because she does not want her son to be a brawler. After Yun Shil has put the teacher in his place, she returns to the children. She threatens one of them, claiming that if he raises his hand against her son again, she will break his arms. The hero is silent all this time, watching the mother's actions. He notices that Yun Shil was kind only to him. 2 women are sitting on a table. Between them is a huge plate with small fish. One of them notes that the child Yun Shil always looks very gloomy and never talks. The other supports the conversation, assuming that something is wrong with him. A voice from the side makes women wonder. Their plate flies into the air, and the hero's mother furiously expresses her claims in the face of the fair sex, while calling them old witches. Yun Shil defends the opinion of his son, trying to understand what the women meant by saying that something is wrong with him. She does not let them insert a word, confidently stating that they have already outlived their time and it's time for them to go to bed. The girl also notes that no one cares about their opinion anymore. The hero's mother gets into an argument with a young man in glasses on the street. The man claims that you need to love your country, But these words only irritate Yun Shil. The woman claims that the country has done nothing for her personally. Her father died and she became an orphan. Her husband was killed in the war, and she became a widow. And now it also turns out that they want to take away her place, where she has been working since the days when her baby was still in the womb. The woman throws a protest, claiming that if they kick them out, they will starve to death. She falls to the ground, declaring that she will never move from it. She is ready to lay down her life for this place, so she screams that if they are not going to kill her, then let them get out. The hero realizes that Yun Shil has been struggling with the world all the time. Time passed quickly and imperceptibly. Leon eventually finally got used to the human body. Mother and son came to the clearing with a bunch of flowers. The woman took one of them and tore it off to put it behind her ear. She turned to her son to get his opinion, but the hero's thoughts were in a completely different direction. He began to think about leaving. Quickly realizing that her son would not answer anything, the girl humbly bowed her head, after which she instantly found the strength to reject the offense. She held out her hand to the boy, offering to go for food. The hero immediately extended his hand to the woman, noting that Yun Shil's hand was warm but stiff. Unexpectedly, Li Yan decides to ask his mother a question. He wants to know why to fight. These words shock the woman a little, but Yun Shil quickly pulls herself together, stating that her son has nothing to fear, because she will protect him. A cold gust of wind blew, which tore the flower from the woman's ear. The mother notices that it is starting to get cold, so she suggests to hurry up, noting that today they will eat meat. Something happened that the hero was so afraid of. Holding the woman's hand, he lost all desire to leave. Moreover, he wants to spend more time with Yun Shil. The flower that flew off the head of the hero's mother was picked up from the ground by a man. He watches Yun Shil and Li Yan, realizing that he has finally found the monster. The strongest survives, and the weak become food for the strong. This unspoken law concerns all beings in the world. Any creature knows this rule from birth, but not all deaths are justified. Someone's death helps to beat the heat. We are talking about creating a fan made of bird feathers. Someone's death helps to overcome the cold. After processing the fur of which animal, you can create a coat or jacket to protect from the cold. Someone's death serves science. For example, before using a vaccine or some kind of drug for monkeys or humans, scientists test its work on rodents. Someone's death goes to the creation of a purse, and sometimes death becomes an ornament. It also happens that death becomes entertainment. You don't have to go far for an example. In Greece, bullfights in the arena are often tripled, the result of which is most often the death of an animal. This is the situation the main character does not like, so he wants to change it. It's been 12 years since Li Ying was born. He has already started to leave the house on his own. Now he walks barefoot on the river, collecting what he was asked to. The hero finally got used to the human environment. Their neighborhood has changed a lot in the last few years. The roads have become smoother, and the houses are higher. Li Ying walks across the bridge, paying attention to two chimneys in the distance, from which black smoke is pouring out. He also notices that there is a pipe from which waste flows into the river, polluting it. A factory was built near the river. The hero enters a room in which a woman is lying on a futon. She doesn't open her eyes. Her whole body is under a warm blanket, and beads of sweat are running down her face. Yun Shil got sick. Li Yan remembers how it happened. One day, mother and son sat down at a table with food on which there was fish. The hero took a piece in his mouth, after which, after chewing several times, he spat it out. The woman was alarmed. She was worried about her child, assuming that he got a bone. The hero mentally admits that there was food that he instinctively hated. There was a fried fish in a plate on the table. It was her piece that Li Ying spat out. Yun Shil boldly takes one of the pieces of fish with chopsticks. She says that this food is very useful, and this fish was very difficult to catch. She holds out her chopsticks to her son, asking him to open his mouth. The hero flatly refuses to do this. The woman is confused by this, but she quickly moves away from him, shoving a piece into her mouth and saying that then it is not necessary, she will eat everything herself. The mother is very offended, because many people dream of trying at least a piece of fish. The woman ate all the fish herself. The hero also regrets that he did not dissuade Yun Shil from eating fish then. Li Ying wrings out a rag, dipping it first in cold water, and then puts the cloth on the mother's forehead. The woman wakes up and sees her son. She squeezes out a smile through the pain, after which the boy gets up from his seat. Yun Shil, noticing his son's actions, clarifies whether he is going to school. After receiving a positive nod, she smiles sincerely, wishing him good luck. After school, the hero goes to sell apples instead of his mother. Li Yan takes one of the apples in his hand, noticing that it has begun to deteriorate. To himself, he reflects on the nature of people. People destroy everything for their own comfort. The comfort of one person leads to the suffering of another. Most of all in this vicious circle, the hero does not like the fact that Yun-shil has to suffer for some reason. He returns the spoiled apple to the basket, putting it so that its corruption is not visible. A man approaches the boy's place. He notices the freshness of apples, specifying their price. Li Yan is surprised by the buyer, but still replies that the price of an apple is 10 won. The man declares that it is expensive. He takes one of the apples and takes a bite out of it. The hero mentally understands that all people are different. This led to the fact that society began to invent laws to maintain order. Li Yaying remembers that he has already broken the law once by becoming a criminal. He killed a man. It turns out that the new buyer is the only witness to his crime. The man notes that the apple is very tasty. He admits that he planned to come earlier, but he liked watching the hero. He wanted to see the monster grow. The man brought the police with him along with the detective who was investigating. He decides to ask the child a question that interests him. He doesn't understand why he pretends to be human. The hero is silent on this, not reacting in any way to the words of the buyer. Realizing that he will not get any answer, the man notices that the boy has not started talking. He orders the hero to be taken away. Li Yan doesn't resist. There is no panic on his face. Moreover, he behaves as if nothing terrible is happening, even though he was handcuffed. Residents of the town are surprised by what is happening. The man notices that the monster is not at all scared of what is happening. He claims that he is suspected of espionage. Li Yan looks at the adult with a blank stare that speaks for him. Then the man decides to disturb the boy's peace of mind. He says that if he turns out to be a spy, his mother will suffer first of all. The man notes that they have already sent people to Yun-shil. The boy's blank stare changes to a frightened one. His pupils are narrowing. The man does not feel any threat, continuing to remember that the woman has health problems, so it will be very difficult for her to survive the investigation, the measures for which will be quite cruel. The power begins to concentrate around the hero, and the aura around him changes before his eyes. This is noticed by the men, which is why he asks his comrades to move away from him, claiming that they may die. The asphalt under the boy's feet begins to sag. This amazes everyone present, because the whole road begins to be covered with a web of cracks. Residents of the city who witnessed what is happening are in real shock. The hero does not waste time in vain. In one jump, he overcomes a huge distance, leaving the environment. The men's comrades are surprised by this, because they do not understand what happened, and how the boy could get something like this. The detective is sweating nervously from what he saw, and only the man who witnessed the murder retains his composure, realizing that everything went according to plan. He also explains to his friend that this boy is a real monster. Li Yan hurries towards his mother's house. He thinks that the person who called him a monster definitely underestimated him, because he could be anyone. So that day he became a disaster. A sunny day. Floating white clouds are visible in the sky. The events unfold in a big city with a bunch of multi-story buildings. The hero is walking down the street with a huge stream of people. He is wearing a hoodie that partially covers his face and jeans with sneakers. Li Yaying finally realized the advantage that allows people to stay on top of the world despite a weak organization. This advantage lies in the language. The ability to communicate allows people to form groups and develop faster than any other creatures. The hero admits that he has begun to understand their language. He will never do it, because he does not know whether it was a blessing or a curse. Events are transferred to that nightmarish day. The hero runs along a shallow river. He uses the frog's ability, after which he makes a jump of several tens of meters. He lands on the road, after which he immediately prepares for a new jump. A force radiates through his legs, which causes the veins to strain so much that they begin to bulge on the skin. While the hero is rushing to his mother, two policemen begin to communicate on a bench somewhere in the city. One is sitting on a bench, smoking a cigarette and inhaling tobacco smoke, and the second approaches him, wanting to know about his condition. The smoker does not quite understand what the interlocutor is asking. The same explains that he saw his boss scolding him. Having received no response, the man sits down on a bench, taking a cigarette out of a pack. He admits that he also found what was happening strange, because a 12-year-old child simply cannot be a spy a priori. In addition, too many people were involved in this mission. The friend still decides to ask why the man tried to stop him. The man admits that he was really scared. Even now, the man's hands are shaking from the look of this child. Meanwhile, the other policemen had already reached Yun-shil's house. They check the address again, after which, having made sure that there is no mistake, they order subordinates to take the woman out of the house. People approach the house, starting to knock and ask about whether someone is at home or not. Suddenly, Li Yaying lands behind them. The sound of landing attracts the attention of everyone present. They look around and see a boy running down a stream of sweat. The hero does not answer them. The crowd is trying to figure out what kind of sound it was and where the child came from. The chief among the crowd comes forward, deciding to find out if the boy lives here. Li Yaoyan nods his head, giving a positive answer. One of the subordinates expresses his disbelief. He sees a simple child, so he assumes that their boss made a mistake. The main one decides that they will find out everything after the interrogation. He orders the child to be taken away. A man takes an order from his superiors. The trio approaches Li Yaoyan, offering him to go with them. The hero is preparing to use his abilities to deal with them, but the door of the house opens. Yan Shil crawled to the door and opened the door. She's wondering what's going on. Her condition is terrible. A woman notices her son among a crowd of men. The police quickly realize that this is the mother of the child. The fact that she is sick also does not go away from their gaze. The main one declares that they are simply following the orders of their superiors, so they need to be captured. An adult hand falls on the shoulder of the hero, the owner of whose voice asks the child to go with him. Seeing all this, Yan Shil rises to his feet. Her body is shaking, but she goes to meet the men, trying to understand what is happening and where her child is being taken. She demands that he be released. Seeing that the crowd does not react to her words in any way, she gathers courage and strength, after which, on exhaling, she begins to call people for help, claiming that they want to steal her son. One of the men asks her to calm down. He wants to put his hand on her shoulder, but the woman waves him away. In the eyes of the mother, everyone present becomes scum who want to take her son away from her. The leader of the group is surprised that Yan Shil has the strength to scream, because a few moments ago it seemed that she was about to die. The second man assumes that the woman was pretending. For him, it becomes a confirmation that she is a spy. The hero is surprised by how his mother tries to shout for help. Her scream ends when a man takes her by the shoulder from behind, after which he prescribes a strong beam, ordering her to close her mouth. Seeing the wound on Yan Shil's face and how she falls to the ground, the hero felt a change inside himself. He knew that human language is capable of describing almost anything. But at that moment there was a chill, and he himself felt anger boil up in him. The man noticed the changes in the child from the outside, but did not have time to do anything, because it was then that the hero lost his mind. Li Yaoyan only regained consciousness when everyone present was dead. He caused a bloodbath, mercilessly killing several people. His fingers were dripping with blood, and they were almost broken. Yan Shil watched the whole thing with tears in her eyes. Her son was standing among several corpses of men. She called his name, forcing him to pay attention to her. She was on her knees, sobbing from what was happening. The hero realized that it had happened again. A military car drove up from behind, from which several people got out, among whom was the chief. This man rejoiced at what he saw, because the boy lost control. He pointed to the corpses, claiming that he was right. The man said that the boy is a real monster, so he cannot be spared, otherwise they will die like everyone else. Li Yaoyan clenched his fists, preparing for a new battle for his life, but Yan Shil ran forward, covering her son's body. She raised her hands to the sky, indicating that she was giving up. The hero's mother decided to take all the blame on herself. She insisted that she was the one who killed all these people, and her child did nothing. This put everyone present in a stupor. Li Yaoyan watched his mother with surprise and shock, not believing his eyes. Yan Shil, who couldn't even eat, screamed with all her might. The police, along with the chief, were stunned by the words and actions of the woman. The hero clutched his heart, remembering their conversation about why to fight. Now he understood that it was necessary to fight in order to protect someone. He fought to protect Yan Shil. Tears flowed from the child's eyes from the realization that the woman was sacrificing herself to protect him. The woman literally demanded to be taken away, covering her son with her body. In the eyes of the chief there was bewilderment from this picture. The boss saw a lot, but to make the monsters cry, it was something that went beyond the normal view of the world. To make sure that he understands the situation correctly, the man pointed the barrel of the weapon at Yan Shil. At first he aimed the gun at her chest, intending to kill her, but he changed his mind by aiming at her leg. He closed one eye to hit the target accurately. The boss fired. The woman froze in shock. Birds in the area broke from the branches, flying away from the loud sound of a gunshot. Yan Shil covered her face with her hands, because Li Yaoyan covered her with his body. He was not seriously injured by the bullet, but there was a bruise on his skin. Seeing what he originally wanted, the boss ordered his subordinates to shoot the woman. The detective expresses suspicions about such an order from the boss. He sees that the son and mother do not resist. The man shouts at his subordinates in anger. He points to the corpses of their comrades, reminding them that the monster killed them. He He confidently declares that if they do not comply with the order, they will end up like them. Men swallow a lump in their throat, realizing that the boss is right to some extent. The quartet points the muzzles of pistols at the hero's mother. The boss gives the order to open fire again. Lee Yan gathers his thoughts. He accepts this situation, telling himself that he must protect his mother at all costs. The hero is going to reveal all his abilities from each past life completely. Dozens of bullets are flying in their direction. Li Yaying catches several of them with his hand. From the shockwave, Yun Shil falls to the ground, covering his eyes. The hero feels that he is starting to succeed. He stands on tiptoe, using the power of the armadillo. He covers the woman with his body, taking bullets. Tears come to the mother's eyes. The shooting stops. Adults are under an indescribable impression. In front of them is a child whose hands are covered in blood, and his blood is already flowing from open wounds on his body. The boy's gaze is unwavering. He will stand until the very end, then start sweating from this picture. The boss intervenes the case. He orders his subordinates to open fire again, because the monster does not move. The man reminds that if they don't shoot, they will die here. The adults raise their pistols again, starting to shoot. The hero gathers his strength, perfectly aware that he had no choice. He is preparing to repeat everything all over again. But this time Yun Shil runs forward, covering his child with his body and hugging him. Such actions of the woman amazed everyone. The hero stood in a stupor, not knowing how to react to this, and the man realized that the bullets fired would not hit the monster, but the woman. After them, she would die, so there was fear in his eyes from what was happening. The hero does not believe in what is happening. Several bullets hit Yun Shil's body. It was the first time he called her mom. The woman falls to the ground, bleeding. The boy bends over her. Tears come to his eyes. The last spirit comes out of the mother, but she spends her last strength to touch her son's cheek with her hand. She smiles and mumbles something unintelligible. Li Yaying also remembers that mom did this every day before going to bed. Each time the woman spoke with warmth that she loved him. In the next second, Yun Shil's hand falls to the ground. Tears flow down the cheeks of the hero from the loss of a loved one. The birds fly away, and the sun goes below the horizon. A woman opens her eyes in a white space. She does not understand where she is, assuming that she is already in heaven. A couple of steps away, she discovers Li Yain, who is sobbing on his knees. The woman smiles tenderly, asking him why he is crying, because even at birth he did not cry. The hero asks for forgiveness. He regrets what happened, admitting that he does not know what to do next. He reveals his soul to a woman. Li Yan talks about his experiences, because he does not know why he was given these abilities. The boy blames himself for everything that happened, because if he only knew that everything would end this way, he could fix everything. Yun Shil bends over his child. She calms him down, saying that everything is fine. The woman says that his birth was the main event in her life. She thanks her son for everything. Li Yan declares that they will see each other soon. This is a little alarming for Yun Shil. She pulls away from her son a little, asking him to do her a favor. Meanwhile, in the real world, the hero gets up from his knees, preparing for battle. The mother's request is that no matter what happens and no matter what has to be done, he must live. The hero's gaze becomes serious, although tears are still running down his cheeks. Why was the boss so obsessed with Li Yaying? There may have been many reasons, but the answer is obvious. It was all about pride. People look at the world through the prism of self-perception and fear the unknown, so he wanted to put an end to it. The hero got to his feet. His body was steaming. The boss had already realized that this was the end, because the only reason they were alive was the monster's mother. Tears were streaming down his cheeks, and his mother's voice was ringing in the child's head, ordering him to live. At that moment, the hero realized that he could not coexist with people. He is afraid of injuring or killing another person. The hero decided to fulfill the last request of a loved one. He used his power, but not to attack the men, but to escape from them. This put all the survivors into a stupor. To himself, the boy repeated his mother's last words once again. Whatever happens, whatever he has to do, he will live. Li Yaying jumped onto the roof of the house, from which he cast a threatening glance at the boss. This brought the man to his senses. He ordered everyone to get into the car to continue chasing the monster. The boss thought that the monster was exhausted, so this is their last chance to catch him. The boy started jumping on the roofs of houses towards sunset. He left the settlement, starting to move along a rural road. The adults followed him by car, not lagging a step behind. Running through a field of flowers, Li Yaying remembered how he spent time with his mother at this place. He stopped abruptly, turning in the direction of the pursuing car. Seeing that the monster stopped, the boss who was driving pressed the brakes. The car stopped a few meters away, after which the men got out of it. The boss was already beginning to rejoice that he had cornered the monster. He decided to make fun of him, pretending that he did not understand why the boy did not run further. The hero admits that he could not run before, because otherwise his mother would have suffered. To the surprise of all the adults, he asks them for forgiveness. This causes confusion among men. Li Yaying explains, covering his face with his hands, that all the people he killed with his own hands, like the people opposite, must have a mother. He realizes that everyone has that one person who loves you and you love him. The hero understands that today he has lost such a person. The boss admires this behavior of the child, claiming that he talks well for his age. Li Yan decides to have a heart-to-heart talk with adults. He admits that he did something wrong, but this also applies to all people, because they mercilessly kill, destroy and spoil everything. The detective tries to intervene, not understanding what the boy is talking about, but the boss stops him. The hero admits that he has always wondered why he was born again and why he was given these powers. The boy declares that he has finally found the answers to these questions. The power that all adults feel begins to spread through Li Yan's body. The boy clenches his fists until they crack, and the asphalt cracks under his feet. The hero explains that he was born to destroy pathetic people. These words amaze adults who begin to be afraid of the child. The boy pushes off from the ground. The men's eyes turn to him. The hero flies up a few meters, after which he rapidly falls down. The boss screams in panic, not knowing what to do. Li Yaying plunges into the ground like a bomb. A military vehicle flies into the air. The car turns over. She is steaming. The men lost consciousness. They were crushed by huge chunks of asphalt. The hero looks at the boss who started all this from the very beginning. The man was crushed to the ground by a huge boulder. He does not ask for mercy and does not try to find pity from the monster. He only notices before death that he was right about the child. He believes that the boy should have died, because monsters like him should not exist in this world. The hero agrees with the thoughts of the boss, emphasizing that it would be better if he killed him. Li Yan approaches the adult, preparing to deliver the final blow. However, the boy immediately notes that he failed to do this, which is why all the people of the world, every single one, will have to feel his anger. The man screams furiously in despair, after which the hero finishes him off. Night came. The boy walked non-stop with Yun Shil in his arms. Perhaps because of fatigue, she began to hear her voice. Memories of good days with my mother crashed into my head. Those words that he had heard dozens of times finally reached him, and Li Yaying answered them. Walking on the grass in the dark, the hero realizes that the years he spent with his mother seemed like a moment compared to millions of years of life. However, Li Yan understands that that moment meant everything to him. He was experiencing a feeling of endless love, which he was not familiar with before. It was for this reason that he felt a sense of infinite happiness. However, the problem is that Mom is no longer around. She died because of him. The boy stops. The rays of the sun begin to tease nature from under the horizon, shimmering from yellow to pink colors. Li Yan admits that no death has ever caused him so much pain. Then the last conversation with Mom pops up in my head. The hero remembers that she asked him for a favor. This is the very service that he cannot refuse. He must live. To live no longer for myself, but for her. For this reason, he continues to move forward despite the fact that his loved one, who became the only ray of light in this endless cycle of rebirth, has died. The child walks towards dawn, realizing that he is ready to do anything to fulfill his mother's request. Events are postponed to winter. A man with rounded facial features goes hunting. In his hands are hunting rifles, and on his body is a warm coat along with a woolen hat. He notices an unusual bird, somewhat similar to a rooster. She climbed onto the trunk of a tree to, apparently, inspect a small piece of land in search of food. The man immediately points the barrel of the gun at her, after which, after a moment spent aiming, he makes a shot. The shot knocks the bird off a huge stump. The hunter rejoices that he has finally found his prey. He rushes to the dead bird to take the catch home, but a small child is already standing over his prey. His clothes are shabby, and there are many abrasions, bruises, and scuffs on his body. The boy is not dressed for the weather. He's wearing shorts and a short-sleeved t-shirt. Li Yan looks at the dead bird, not reacting to the hunter in any way. The hunter boldly approaches the child, trying to find out what he is doing here. The man understands that it is dangerous in the wild. Seeing that the boy does not take his eyes off the bird, the hunter explains that it is a pheasant. He is trying to somehow get the child to talk, so he says that this is a large enough individual for these places. He admits that he hasn't seen them for a long time. Here the hero asks a question that takes the man by surprise. Li Yan asks if the interlocutor is proud of himself. The man does not understand the essence of the question, and the hero is already preparing to use his strength to deal with the man. but the hunter translates the topic, wondering where the boy's parents are. The hero admits that they died. Suddenly, the hunter notices what the child is wearing. He throws a pheasant on the snow, after which he throws his coat over the shoulders of the hero. The man notices that it's winter, and the boy should be cold in one t-shirt. Li Yaying looks up hopefully at the man, and the man, not even hearing any response from the child, takes him by the hand, intending to take him to his home. An elderly grandmother is standing at the entrance, waiting for the arrival of her son. The hunter greets her from afar, asking her to go inside the house because it's cold outside. The hunter's mother also reminds that you need to wash your hands before eating. The three of them sit down at the table. Everyone has a bowl of rice, and in the center of the table there is a saucer with pheasant meat. The man notices that the child is not eating anything. He suggests that he just try, but the boy is alarmed by strange sounds outside the house. The hunter notices that the sounds are loud enough. He explains that construction is underway on the mountain. They are building buildings there, which they called risado. Li Yan doesn't respond to this. Then the hunter switches to the topic related to the boy's adventure. He wants to know how he ended up in the mountains. The hero claims that he just came. This answer is a little alarming to the man, but the latter quickly comes to his senses, stating that there is nothing in these places, so the mountains are not the best place for a child. The hunter declares that tomorrow he will take him to the village, where he will ask the headman to find someone who could look after the child. The man claims that children should go to school. The hero at this moment takes a handful of rice from his plate with the help of chopsticks and tastes it. While he is enjoying his meal, a man's fist hits him on the head. This blow is very weak. It is more intended for the child to pay attention to it. This action puts Li Yan into a stupor. The hunter also says that the boy must learn the rules of behavior with seniors at school. He smiles sincerely at him, trying to support him. This surprises the hero. Night falls. The trio goes to sleep on the same futon. The hero is placed in the center. Li Yan is not sleeping. He looks at the framed photos on the nightstand. On them you can see the whole life of his sleeping man, from the moment when he was just born to the moment when he embarked on the current life path. Chapter 1-9. Morning comes. A man and his mother are considering a hero. They gave him clothes to try on, but the clothes are literally hanging off him. The man understands that she is a little too big for him. He gets down on one knee in front of the boy to wrap warm pants that would drag on the ground or snow because of the length. The man takes a standing position, emphasizing that it is much better this way. He says goodbye to his mom, stating that they will be back in a moment. The elderly woman doesn't say anything, just waving goodbye. The hunter walks along the path with the hero. Snow rustles underfoot. Li Yan notes that the mother of the escort is very taciturn. The man treats the hero the way he should treat a child. He puts his hand on his head, shaking his hair and clarifying where his respect for adults is. This annoys the boy a little. It is clear that he is not particularly pleased with such treatment. The man admits that his mother cannot speak because she is deaf and dumb. These words give rise to another question in the child, which he immediately asks an adult. The hero asks why the interlocutor keeps talking to her if she doesn't hear anything. The hunter claims that the boy noticed correctly, but the bottom line is that the mother always understands what the son is talking about. Li Yan clarifies whether the woman understands what is going on in his soul. The man answers in the affirmative. It's starting to rain. An adult notices this. He understands that it is better not to walk for a long time in the pouring rain, otherwise you can get sick. Holding the child by the hand, he leads him towards a small cave to hide from the rain. It turns out that their shelter is a small depression in the rock, on top of which there is a construction equipment. The man notices the strangeness, because it is very unusual that it rains in the middle of winter. Terrible weather contributes to the fact that the soil becomes damp and soft. There are several stumps on the top of the mountain. The ground in this place is already loose because of the roots of trees, and when it rains, everything gets even worse. A few moments later, the collapse occurs. The hunter manages to react, so he just pushes the child out of the small cave. He himself is pinned to the ground. He's breathing hard. Blood is pouring from his nose, and something flew over his head, but even with all this, he continues to worry about the boy, asking about his condition. The hero immediately runs up to the avalanche, from which the hunter's head and right hand stick out. He begins to dig, throwing the earth aside. The man does not understand how it happened. Li Yan does not lose hope. He asks the hunter to hold on, stating that he will pull him out. The man whispers the dying words. It turns out that he is worried about his mother, who will eventually be left alone. This puts the boy into a stupor, and when he wakes up a moment later, the man already closes his eyes, dying. The hero takes a step back. He gets wet in the rain, looking at the good man who died, who decided not just to help him, but even saved him. He looks up to the peak from which the avalanche descended. He remembers that the man was talking about the fact that there is a construction site on a nearby mountain. He tries to remember the name of the building that is being built, and he succeeds. The building is called a resort. The hero digs the man's body out of the rubble and begins to drag him home. Along the way, he bumps into the hunter's mother. The elderly woman, apparently, felt something was wrong with her heart, so she decided to check everything herself. She meets the boy with shock. In one hand she has an open umbrella, and in the other she carried an umbrella for her son, who could get wet on the way back. She sees that her son is in a serious condition. The umbrella falls out of her hands by itself. After a while, Lee Yan is sitting on the porch of the house. The rain has already stopped, and the clouds have dispersed. Only the droplets falling from the branches of trees and the roof remind us that it rained in winter. The hero closes his eyes, thinking about his meaning of life. He remembers something that happened relatively recently. The feelings and emotions that he experienced when his mother was threatened are still fresh in his memory. He realizes that at that moment he was really ready to destroy all people, because he was very angry at them. He remembers telling the dying boss that he wouldn't leave anyone alive. Li Yaying looks at his hands, realizing that he still hasn't made a decision. It is very difficult for him, because he is faced with two extremes. Such a decision is difficult to make. Even he doesn't know what's best. The hero remembers how he came to them. The director asks why there is no security at the entrance, although today is a very important day. The subordinate, stuttering, replies that he will now drive the child away. He breaks into a meeting with a boy, claiming that he is not allowed here. He wants to tell the child to come home, but the guy notices the corpses of the guards in the distance. There is a bloody path from the child. Li Yan recalls the words of his mother, who said that even if he didn't know what to do, that he should just try. Yunshil noted an important detail. The number of points does not matter, because everyone has the right to make a mistake. The subordinate falls to the 5th point, realizing that it was the child who killed the guards. And in Li Yan's head, his mother's words sound that if he doesn't know what to do, then it's better to do what you think is right yourself. The boy's fist clenches. Now he has no doubt that he will kill them all, because that's what he really wants. The hero decides that he needs to improve day by day. He wants to get better every day in order to eventually achieve his goal, to destroy humanity. He understands perfectly well that this is not an easy task, but he must cope with it. His hands are already up to the elbows in blood, but this is only the beginning of his long journey. Li Yan stands on a small mound next to two framed photographs located on the graves. The sun sets below the horizon, and the boy himself reflects on why the woman did this. He suggests that she was too shocked by her son's death. It turns out that the old lady died in her sleep a couple of days ago. The child decides that he needs to rethink everything that happened. He returns to the house of the deceased hunter and his mother. The hero sits down on a small step at the entrance to the house, starting to analyze the power that he possesses. He reflects on the fact that at the moment he owns all the skills of the human life of everyone else. He admits that his abilities allow him to do anything. But there is one problem, which is that if he does not realize this, he is no different from an ordinary walking piece of meat. Li Yan understands that this cannot continue. The year passes after the death of the hunter and his mother. A train is riding on the rails. The person who is following the direction of movement notices a boy on the train's path. He starts to slow down, but immediately realizes that the high-speed path is not enough to stop completely. The child will suffer greatly. The hero uses his power. At the last moment before the collision, he soars into the air, ending up at a height of 5 to 7 meters. The train stops after a dozen meters. The man flies out of the main compartment of the train and rushes in the direction where the downed boy should have been. But there is no one on the spot. Li Yaying walks through a green clearing further into the forest, while the man tries to examine with incomprehension, starting to think about what he thought. The hero has finally achieved something important. Now he is able to constantly be in a strong body, like a clam shell. He does not come out of this state even when he loses consciousness. In fact, he now has permanent protection. Another year passes. The hero does not waste time in vain. He manages to establish contact with all living beings. Naturally, he did not communicate with them in human language, but non-verbally. That is, he established a telepathic connection with them. Li Yan admits that it was easier than he thought. In addition, his sixth sense has become more developed. The fact that it is in the human body has played a big role in understanding the characteristics of each living individual, because most living beings on Earth are similar to humans. However, the hero is not completely sure about this. Another 5 years pass. The body has finally reached the size of an adult and is in the very dawn of physical strength. Leon thinks that it would be nice if the body was preserved in this state for a longer time. He even knows how to contribute to this. He decides to take advantage of the turtle feature. 10 years pass. Factories pollute the environment more. The water and air are already saturated with toxic gases. The guy didn't waste any time. During this period of time, he established contact not only with living beings, but with the earth, water, plants, and other things. It turns out that there is life in everything on this planet. Chapter 1-11. And the most important thing is that the hero feels it. Moreover, Li Yaying feels that all living beings are suffering and are gradually approaching death. The guy turns 30 years old. He continued to develop his skills, beginning to realize that there is no limit to them. The hero also realized another important detail. It turns out that abilities can be combined. And this means only one thing. The hero's preparation for the destruction of humanity is over. Li Yan is going to do it, because he just feels that it should happen. He realizes that this is easy to do, but there are some things he doesn't like. Not only people will die, but he is trying to discard these thoughts. He is ready to go to the end, although he doubts the correctness of his decisions. For 20 years his life has been spent away from civilization. He is thinking about whether it is worth giving another chance to modern people. The hero approaches this question from the reverse side. He knows perfectly well the true nature of people, so why amuse yourself with false hopes? He remembers his mother and the hunter who helped him once. Leon decides that one chance can still be given to humanity, because he can destroy this world at any moment anyway, so you can take your time. The hero is aware of one important thing. There is no place left in this world where a human foot has not set foot. The guy draws a parallel with the road he is walking on. Recently, there was a forest in its place where a beautiful acacia tree bloomed. Just the thought of such a thing angers the guy. He wants to end the existence of humanity again. He was tired of watching people destroy the whole world around them. Then a car horn is heard from behind. The car's headlights shine into Li Yan's face, but he ignores it. He notices that the world used to be much quieter. He's using his powers. The asphalt under his feet begins to crack, and huge boulders begin to fall from a nearby cliff. Behind the wheel of the car is a girl who is trying her best to avoid the death of a person who got in the way. She turns the steering wheel, trying to slow down. The girl drives around the falling stones, getting closer to the hero. She shouts something at him, but Li Yan doesn't hear it. The pupils of his eyes narrow with recognition. He sees in the girl driving his dead mother, who gave her life for him. Then a huge boulder falls on her car. A representative of the fair sex realizes that she is unable to escape from him, so she tries to hide in the car. The hero jerks at the car, smashing a huge stone in flight. Fragments from a huge boulder scatter in different directions. The girl closed her eyes at the last moment, preparing for death. Even when the boulder was smashed, she did not open her eyes, continuing to tremble with fear. When she dares to open one eye, she notices the head of the hero, who remained on the roof of her vehicle. She is afraid of such an appearance to a guy. At the same moment, a small piece breaks off from the rock. It falls on Li Yaying's head, causing serious damage to the hero. He begins to bleed from the place of impact. He realizes that he was suddenly in pain. The girl presses the gas pedal in horror. Li Yan does a few somersaults, falling on the asphalt. She runs out of the car, deciding to check on the man she hit. The guy can't get up. He doesn't understand what's going on. He knows that he has to turn off his feelings and use force, but for some reason he can't do it. Everything starts to swim before his eyes, and the hero realizes that he is losing his mind. At this moment, a girl runs up to him. She leans over him. A representative of the fair sex says something. She has a ringing in her ears. The guy doesn't hear her. He only notes that she looks very much like his mother, after which he closes his eyes. He feels it again. He feels that he is leaving this world. The feeling of death does not leave the hero, but he abruptly opens his eyes. The white light hits his eyes, but the guy ignores it, abruptly taking a sitting position. He discovers that he is lying on a cot, next to which there is a girl who looks like his mother, and another representative of the fair sex. It's a nurse. It is she who asks the hero not to make sudden movements, because too little time has passed since the operation. The hero repeats the word operation, not quite understanding what he is talking about. The nurse explains that they could not establish his identity and get permission from relatives, but the doctor said that it was impossible to wait, so now everything is fine. The girl writes something down in the report. The nurse decides to find out the name of Lee Yaoyan, and the same in turn rubs his head, repeating after her. It begins to seem that he has lost his memory. The nurse explains that they have no information about the victim, so she repeats her question again. The guy's pupils narrow sharply. He stares into the void for a few moments. Two girls are starting to worry about this. The hero replies that he can't remember anything. The nurse asks in surprise if he doesn't remember anything for sure. At the same time, another girl is trying to figure out what kind of dialect the hero has. The guy, looking at the familiar face of one of the girls, remembers his mother and then reports that his name is Li Ya-ying. A doctor enters the room, to whom the nurse tells the information. The guy's age is unknown, the place of residence is unknown. The man understands that this is most likely amnesia, because of which the hero lost his memory. The nurse confirms the words of the doctor, who notes that this is a big problem. He turns his gaze to the girl who brought him here. 3 months pass. The girl who saved Li Yan is trying to find out who he is and where he came from. To identify his identity, she turns to the police. A dialogue ensues between her and the guy, as a result of which it becomes clear that the man has broken through databases for 20-year-olds and 40-year-olds. But he has not found any matches. In addition, the man noted that the fingerprints of the hero are not registered, and there is no information about him at all. A policeman intervenes in the conversation, who states that he tried to find at least some clue on this issue. To do this, he looked at the surveillance cameras over the past few months, but there was no result. The girl irritably grabs her head, realizing that everything is useless, and they walk in a circle. She doesn't understand how this is possible, because there must be at least something. The man claims that he is meeting with such a person for the first time. It confuses him. He notes that Li Yan doesn't remember anything except the name, but that's no use. The man also recalls the words of the doctor, who said that I admit complete amnesia in the hospital. This leads to the assumption that the hero may be an illegal worker. The fair sex is not given anything by this information, so she asks what she should do with it. The man nervously says that if the guy had a guardian, then everything would be easier. The girl does not immediately understand the meaning of these words, and when she understands what these words were for, she decides to act. The same evening, the girl goes to the hospital. She pulls the hero out of the hospital room. They go together to draw up documents. There is a small queue there. When a girl is called, she approaches the registration desk of documents, carefully reads the papers, then signs them, casting a hard look at the guy. The hero and the girl leave the hospital together. Leon decides to start a conversation. He notices that the interlocutor is in no mood, so he decides to find out what happened. The representative of the fair sex once again decides to clarify the situation. She believes that she is not to blame for anything, and the hero got amnesia because of the collapse of stones. Therefore, in her opinion, she should not be responsible or be in debt to the guy. Leon does not understand why the girl repeats these words a second time, although he did not give a hint of a different outcome of events. The girl comes close to the guy, explaining that the doctors said he was about 20 years old, so he was put 24 years old in the documents. She explains that the younger, the better. She looms menacingly over the guy, although it looks comical, because the hero is still taller than her. She says that she is already 34 years old. The girl wants the interlocutor to communicate with her with respect, because she is older than him, and Li Yan only notices the girl's words about youth, after which he is interested in what it's like to be so old. A representative of the fair sex realizes that she has been outplayed and destroyed. She accepts defeats, arguing that she is still good enough for him only as a sister, so he can communicate with her on you. The guy doesn't quite understand what he's talking about. The girl repeats that she is now his older sister, so she is ready to teach him manners, which he apparently lost from the blow. Here comes the realization that the hero is supposedly 3.5 billion years old. Realizing that nothing can be achieved from the interlocutor, the girl calls him to follow her. She lets him stay with her until she can find him a job. The girl's words are interrupted by Li Yaoyan, who takes her hand. This causes a storm of indignation among the fair sex. She pulls her hand away, reminding that you can't touch other people just like that. The hero asks why it is impossible. The girl hits herself on the head with her hand, not knowing how to hammer the rules of etiquette into the guy's bright head. She decides to explain to him otherwise, saying that if he wants to take someone by the hand, then you need to ask permission, and only then act. Then Li Yan immediately asks if the interlocutor will give him a hand. The girl is already very angry about this. She reminds him to treat her with respect. The hero repeats his last question in a more detailed form. Then the girl still takes his hand, deciding that it is pointless to waste time just like that. She drags the guy along with her until he begins to have memories of his mother, with whom he also walked. Involuntarily, tears begin to flow from the eyes. His companion notices this. She stops to find out what's going on in the guy. Lee Yan admits that he himself does not know what came over him.